The foghorn wailed like a lover's final goodbye as Jonathan's fingers traced the Braille label on the pill bottle, his heart slamming against ribs that felt too fragile for the weight of another dawn. Austin's voice, usually a warm rumble vibrating through the mattress, was absent this morning, replaced by the sharp, metallic click of a key in the lock downstairs. Too hurried, too foreign. In that split-second silence, Jonathan's world shattered not with sight or sound he couldn't have anyway, but with the sudden, gut-wrenching certainty that the man who'd promised forever had just slipped a lie into their forever. Jonathan Hale had always painted with his hands, not his eyes. In the chaotic pulse of San Francisco's Mission District, where Takarius bled into tech startups and rainbow flags fluttered like defiant prayers, his studio was a sanctuary of smeared canvases and the faint, acrid bite of turpentine that clung to everything. Born blind in a rain-soaked Seattle hospital and losing his hearing to a childhood fever that doctors called a cruel lottery, Jonathan had turned isolation into invention. His fingers were his eyes, his palms his ears, mapping textures like a cartographer charting forbidden lands. Clay yielded to his touch. Oils whispered secrets under his nails. And in those tactile symphonies, he found a voice louder than any scream. It was 2018 when Austin Reeves crashed into his life, quite literally. Jonathan was navigating the throng of the Castro Street Fair, cane tapping a rhythmic Morse code against the cracked sidewalks, when a rogue skateboarder veered off course. He felt the vibration first, a low hum building like thunder, then the impact, a shoulder colliding with his chest, sending him sprawling into a vendor's cart of fresh churros. The world spun in scents of cinnamon and sweat, his body a bruise waiting to bloom. Strong hands caught him before he hit the ground fully, steadying him with a grip that was firm but not frantic. "Whoa! Easy there, artist boy," came the voice, low and laced with that easy California drawl, vibrating through Jonathan's arm like a bass line from a hidden speaker. "You okay? That board was gunning for you like it had a grudge." Jonathan straightened, brushing sugar from his jacket, his face heating under the stranger's gaze he couldn't see but could feel, like sunlight on skin. "I'm fine," he muttered, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Just another day in paradise." The man laughed, a sound that rumbled warm through the air between them. "Paradise with pirates on wheels. Here, let me buy you a replacement chuo. Call it hazard pay." That was Austin. All charm and quick fixes. A 32-year-old software engineer from the valley who'd traded Silicon dreams for weekend escapes to the city. Tall, with a build honed from pickup basketball games in Golden Gate Park, and a mop of sun-bleached hair that Jonathan would later learn curled just so at the nape. Austin moved through the world with the unhurried grace of someone who'd never questioned his place in it. He wasn't fazed by Jonathan's disabilities. If anything, they intrigued him. "You're like a goddamn superhero," he'd say later, over beers at a dimly lit dive bar where the bass from the jukebox thrummed through the wooden stools. "Feeling the world's pulse when the rest of us are just stumbling blind." Their first date was at the De Young Museum, Austin describing the exhibits in vivid, haptic detail, how the Monet's water lilies felt like whispered silk under fingertips, the Rodin's rough-hewn bronze like a lover's stubbled jaw. Jonathan laughed, genuinely, for the first time in months, his guard cracking under Austin's relentless optimism. By the third date, they were tangled in Jonathan's narrow bed, the city's fog pressing against the windows like a voyeur. Austin's touch was reverent, exploratory, fingers mapping scars and sinews as if committing them to code. "You're beautiful," he'd murmur, breath hot against Jonathan's neck. And for once, Jonathan believed it. Love, for Jonathan, had always been a riskier canvas. Past boyfriends had come and gone like fog banks, fascinated at first by the exotic disabled artist, then frustrated by the invisible barriers. Scheduling interpreters for movies, navigating crowded streets hand in hand, the constant translation of a world that didn't pause. But Austin dove in headfirst. He learned basic ASL on Duolingo, practiced vibrating questions into Jonathan's palm during quiet nights. He quit his high-rise job for freelance gigs, freeing up days to assist at Jonathan's gallery shows, where collectors cooed over the raw emotion in his abstract sculptures, swirls of metal and stone that screamed of isolation bridged by touch. They married in a small ceremony at City Hall in 2020, masks dangling from ears like forgotten promises amid the pandemic hush. Jonathan wore a simple black suit, Austin a vintage leather jacket over crisp white. Vows were exchanged in a mix of spoken words and finger-spelled affections. The judge's voice a distant hum. Jonathan felt more than heard. "I promise to be your eyes, your ears, your everything." Austin signed against Jonathan's chest that night, body slick and urgent under the sheets. Felt like salvation. Life settled into a rhythm as steady as the cable cars clanging up Hyde Street. Their apartment in Hayes Valley was a third-floor walk-up with creaky oak floors and a bay window framing the painted lady's Victorian charm. Mornings began with Austin's coffee grinder whirring, a vibration Jonathan associated with home, followed by the clink of mugs and the press of lips to temple. Afternoons, Austin worked from the kitchen table, debugging code while Jonathan sculpted in the living room, the air thick with clay dust and murmured encouragements. "You're a wizard with that stuff," Austin would say. His voice a soothing bass Jonathan deciphered through bone conduction, pressing an ear or what felt like one to Austin's throat. "That piece is going to make us rich." Collectors in New York are already sniffing around. Jonathan's art was gaining traction. His latest series, Echoes Unheard, featured installations of welded rebar and embedded speakers that hummed subsonic frequencies. Felt, not heard, exploring the intimacy of unspoken grief. Galleries from LA to Chicago clamored for pieces, and Austin handled the logistics, emails, shipments, negotiations. "I've got you," he'd say, squeezing Jonathan's hand, and Jonathan let him. Trust was their foundation, built brick by tactile brick. But cracks, like in any San Francisco quake, started small. It was late summer 2023 when Jonathan first noticed the tremor, not in the earth, but in Austin. A hesitation in his step, a vibration in his chest that skipped like a glitchy track. They'd been at a gallery opening in Soma, the air buzzing with clinking glasses and forced laughter. Jonathan navigated by Austin's guiding arm, feeling the crowd's press like a living organism. Midway through, Austin excused himself to grab a drink, his fingers lingering a beat too long on Jonathan's elbow, a goodbye that felt like an apology. When he returned, his energy was off, the usual steady pulse now erratic, like code compiling with errors. Jonathan frowned, tapping Austin's wrist in inquiry. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, babe. Just network drama. Some client blowing up my inbox." Austin's laugh was forced, the vibration tinny. That night, back home, Jonathan reached for him in the dark, seeking the familiar anchor of skin on skin. But Austin rolled away, mumbling about exhaustion. "Tomorrow, John. Promise." Tomorrow became a string of them. Austin's touches grew perfunctory, meals plated with mechanical precision, but affection doled out in measured doses. Jonathan chalked it up to burnout, Austin's freelance load had spiked with a big contract from a startup in the Presidio. "They're pushing deadlines like it's the gold rush," Austin explained one evening, his voice vibrating through a glass of water Jonathan held to his lips. "But it'll pay off. Trust me." Jonathan did. God, he did. In the quiet hours, when the city's hum faded to a lullaby, he'd trace Austin's wedding band with calloused fingers, feeling the etched infinity symbol they'd chosen together. It grounded him, that metal loop, a promise etched in alloy. Yet doubt is a persistent shadow, even for the sightless. One October afternoon, as golden light slanted through the window, he knew by the warmth on his face. Jonathan's phone buzzed, a rare text from his agent, Lila, relayed via her assistant's voice note. "Jonathan, huge news. That Echo's piece sold for $25K to a private buyer in Pacific Heights. Austin's handling the transfer. Says it's all set. $25,000. Jonathan's stomach flipped, a mix of elation and vertigo. His work had fetched 5 figures before, but this felt like a threshold crossed. He waited for Austin to burst through the door with his trademark whoop, scooping Jonathan into a victory spin. Instead, hours ticked by in silence, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. When Austin finally arrived, the air shifted, scented with cologne sharper than his usual sandalwood, mingled with something metallic, like rain on copper. "Hey, love," he said, voice too bright, pressing a kiss to Jonathan's forehead. "Rough day." Jonathan tilted his head, inhaling. "Sold the piece." Lila called. A pause, longer than the foghorn's echo. Then Austin's arms enveloped him, tight enough to bruise. "That's amazing. I'm so proud." But his heart hammered against Jonathan's ear like a trapped bird, erratic, betraying. That night, as they lay in bed, Jonathan's mind raced. He slipped from the sheets, padding barefoot to the living room. His fingers roamed the desk where Austin kept his laptop, now closed, but humming faintly with residual heat. Curiosity, that old thief, guided his hand to the drawer. Inside, amid receipts and rubber bands, his fingertips brushed paper, a bank statement, edges crisp, ink still fresh. He couldn't read it, not without his reader app, but the weight felt wrong, heavy with numbers that didn't add up. Tucking it into his pocket, Jonathan returned to bed, the paper a secret burning against his thigh. Sleep came fitful, haunted by vibrations he couldn't place. The next morning, the foghorn cried again, and Jonathan wondered if it was morning for him. Weeks blurred into a tense pas de deux. Jonathan scheduled a quiet dinner at their favorite Italian spot in North Beach, red-checkered tables, the sizzle of garlic vibrating through the floorboards. He wanted to confront the unease, to feel Austin's truths spill out like Chianti. But Austin arrived late, his chair scraping with apology. "Traffic from the bridge," he said, but Jonathan caught the lie in the faint tremor of his knee against his own. Over pasta, Jonathan signed into Austin's palm. "Talk to me." "What's wrong?" Austin's fingers intertwined, stalling. "Nothing, John. Just stressed. The contract's wrapping, big payout soon." Then, softer, "I love you. You know that, right?" The words vibrated true, but Jonathan's gut twisted. Love wasn't a line of code. It was messy, human, prone to bugs. Back home, alone while Austin worked late, Jonathan pulled out the statement. Using his phone scanner, he converted it to audio. Lila's assistant owed him a favor for the rush job. The robotic voice droned. Account balance. Negative $14,250. Recent transfer. Outgoing. $25,000 to Wells Fargo account ending 4782. Jonathan's breath caught. That was his sale. Their money. Gone. He sat frozen, the room spinning in sense of betrayal. When Austin's key turned in the lock hours later, Jonathan was still there, statement clutched like a talisman. "Austin," he said, voice ablade. "We need to talk." The air thickened, charged like the prelude to a storm rolling in from the bay. Austin's footsteps halted, then approached slow, deliberate. "John? What's up?" Jonathan thrust the paper forward, feeling Austin's fingers brush it, then still. Silence stretched, broken only by the distant clatter of a BART train rumbling underground. "It's a mistake," Austin finally whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. "I can explain, but explanations," Jonathan knew, were just stories waiting to unravel. And theirs was fraying at the seams. The explanation came in fragments, doled out over the next 3 days like rations in a siege. Austin confessed to the debt first. A gambling spiral that started innocently enough with office poker nights in Mountain View, escalated during the isolation of remote work lockdowns. "It was stupid," he admitted. His voice a low vibration against Jonathan's temple as they sat on the fire escape, the city's nocturnal symphony thrumming below. Online sports bets. Dodgers games. 49ers playoffs. "I thought I could flip it quick. Cover the rent spike when we moved here." Jonathan's fingers dug into the wrought iron railing, cold metal biting skin. The sale money, his triumph, had vanished into that black hole, wired to faceless bookies. 25,000. Poof. But beneath the anger simmered something sharper. The realization that Austin had hidden it all, month after month, while playing the devoted husband. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jonathan signed furiously into Austin's thigh, the gestures sharp as accusations. "We could have figured it out. Together." Austin's hand covered his, trembling. "I didn't want to burden you. You're the artist, the dreamer. I was supposed to be the rock." His laugh was bitter, echoing hollow. "Turns out I'm just gravel." Forgiveness, in the abstract, was a noble thing, humanistic, even like the redemption arcs in those indie films Austin used to describe with such fervor. But in the flesh, it was a battlefield. Jonathan moved through their apartment like a ghost, mapping familiar walls that now felt laced with deceit. The kitchen counter where Austin had once kneaded dough for sourdough bread from Tartine Bakery's scraps. The bedroom shelf lined with Jonathan's small bronzes, each one Austin had helped cast. Every touch evoked a before, mocking the fractured now. Yet love, that stubborn weed, refused to wither. Nights found them clinging together, bodies seeking solace in the language of skin. Austin's apologies were etched in kisses along collarbones, in the way he'd guide Jonathan's hands to his chest, letting him feel the frantic stutter of his heart. "I'm getting help," he'd murmur, breath warm. Debtors' anonymous meetings in the Tenderloin. And a financial advisor, swear to God. Jonathan wanted to believe. In the neighborhood's resilient spirit, where pride parades turned pain into parades, second chances were currency. He threw himself back into work, channeling the hurt into a new piece. Fractured vows, a towering sculpture of shattered glass encased in wire mesh, edges smoothed by his palms until they begged to be touched without cutting. Austin attended the first critique session at the SF Art Institute, his presence a steady vibration in the circle of folding chairs. "It's raw," One student signed haltingly through an interpreter. Like heartbreak you can hold. Austin's pride swelled. Jonathan felt it in the squeeze of his hand. That's my husband, he announced to the group, voice booming with that old confidence. For a moment, the lie receded, and they were them again, partners against the world's white noise. But secrets, like fog, creep back unannounced. It was mid-November, Election Day Eve, when the second fracture appeared. Jonathan was at a solo exhibit in the dogpatch, his installations humming under black lights, drawing murmurs from art snobs in bespoke suits. Austin was there, of course arm-linked, narrating the crowd's reactions. That guy's in a Tom Ford jacket, eyeing your vows like it's the next big thing. Bet he's got a penthouse in Nob Hill. The night peaked with a collector's interest. A silver-haired woman from the DeYoung board, her handshake firm through Austin's guidance. I'll take it, she declared, her voice a clipped vibration Jonathan associated with authority. 10,000, wired by morning. Elation surged, but tempered now by caution. As the gallery emptied, Jonathan pulled Austin aside, into the alcove shadowed by hanging textiles. Promise me, he tapped against Austin's palm. Urgent. No games this time. The money goes straight to the account. Scout's honor, Austin replied, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of champagne and desperation. Morning brought the wire confirmation, Lila's excited voice note crackling through Jonathan's earpiece. 10 grand. Secure. He exhaled, the knot in his chest loosening like a sail catching wind. Austin was at a meeting, so Jonathan celebrated solo. A walk to the ferry building, cane sweeping the bustling promenade where tourists haggled over Dungeness crab and sourdough. The bay's salt tang filled his lungs, mingling with street musicians' bass lines thrumming up from the pavement. For the first time in weeks, hope felt tangible, like the rough weave of a cable car strap. That afternoon, back in the studio, Jonathan unpacked a delivery, a crate of premium resins from an LA supplier, courtesy of the exhibit's buzz. Buried in the packing peanuts was a note handwritten, Austin's blocky scrawl converted to Braille by Lila's team. Proud doesn't cover it. Dinner tonight? Your pick. Love. A smile tugged at Jonathan's lips, unbidden. Maybe this was the pivot, the moment their story arced toward redemption. Dinner was at Zuni Cafe, the iconic roost where waiters balanced platters of oysters and wood-fired chicken like high-wire acts. Austin arrived flushed, his cologne that familiar sandalwood, no copper edge. They shared a corner booth, knees touching under the tablecloth, Austin feeding Jonathan bites with exaggerated flair. This foul's got more flavor than a Napa vintage, he'd quip, voice rumbling playful. Emboldened by the wine's warmth, felt in the glass's subtle heat, Jonathan broached the future. We should plan a trip, he suggested, fingers dancing over Austin's. Big sir. Feel the oceans crash, the redwoods hush. Austin's response was a pause, then a squeeze. Yeah. Soon. After I square this mess. The mess. It hung between them, but softer now, like a bruise fading to yellow. They walked home arm in arm, the chill November air nipping at ankles, holiday lights twinkling in shop windows, Jonathan knew by the festive glow on his skin. At their door, Austin fumbled the key, a rare clumsiness, then pulled Jonathan close. Thank you, he whispered, forehead to forehead. For not quitting on me. In bed, lovemaking was a reclamation. Slow, deliberate, Austin's body a map Jonathan redrew stroke by stroke. Whispers of "I love you" vibrated through flesh, building to a crescendo that left them spent, entwined like roots. But dawn, that merciless editor, revised everything. Jonathan woke to the coffee grinders were routine, reassuring. Yet as he shuffled to the kitchen, his bare foot nudged something underfoot, a slim envelope, slick with dew from the fire escape. His heart stuttered. Wallet, no thinner, official. Fingers trembling, he tore it open. Another statement, this one from their joint savings. Balance, 8,400. Recent activity transfer out, 10,000 to the same Wells Fargo account. The world tilted. Not again. Not after the promise. When Austin emerged, whistling a tuneless melody, Jonathan was seated at the table, envelope clutched like evidence in a trial. Sit, he commanded, voice steel. Austin's whistle died. He sat, the chairs scrape a dirge. John. What is it? You know what it is. Jonathan slid the paper across, feeling Austin's intake of breath like a slap. The collector's money. Gone. To your bookies? Silence, thick as the fog blanketing Twin Peaks. Then Austin's voice. Small. I tried to stop. The meeting last night, it was a slip. One bet, to cover the interest. I swear it'll end here. A slip. Jonathan's laugh was jagged. That's what you call stealing from us? From me. It's not stealing. It's borrowing. I'll pay it back. Double. When the contract hits. Lies layered like varnish, cracking under pressure. Jonathan stood, the room's confines closing in. Get out, John. Please, out. The vibration of his own shout echoed back. Furious. Austin left, door clicking shut like a guillotine. Alone, Jonathan sank to the floor, tears hot on cheeks he couldn't see. The city outside hummed indifferent, cable cars ferrying strangers to brighter fates. Days bled into a gray haze. Jonathan canceled shows, barricaded in the studio, sculpting rage into thorns of twisted wire. Lila called, worried. What's going on? Austin's dodging my emails. He waved her off, focusing on the bite of metal against calluses. Austin's texts came in barrages. Apologies in emoji hearts and voice notes pleading for a hearing, ironic. That. Jonathan deleted them unread, unheard. But absence carves its own ache. Nights were the worst. Bed vast and cold. Austin's pillow retaining only the ghost of sandalwood. A week in, Lila intervened, showing up unannounced with takeout from Golden Boy Pizza. Her hug was fierce, her signs brisk. Talk. Now. Over greasy slices, spilled, the debts, the transfers, the erosion of trust. Lila's sigh was a gust. He's an addict, John. Like any other. But love. It's not a transaction. Feels like one, Jonathan muttered, cheese stringing like severed ties. She left him with homework. Attend a meeting. Not for Austin, for himself. Codependence Anonymous, they called it. The Tenderloin group met in a basement chapel, the air stale with coffee and regret. Jonathan went, cane tapping down graffiti-scarred steps, vibrations guiding him to a folding chair. The circle was eclectic. A drag queen nursing a latte, a tech bro in rumpled hoodies, women with stories of enabling brothers. When his turn came, Jonathan's voice cracked. He took everything. And I let him. Because I thought love meant ignoring the theft. Applause rippled. felt in the floor's tremor. A man beside him, voice gravelly, leaned in. It means seeing the thief clearly. Then choosing anyway. Choosing. The word lodged like a splinter. That night, Jonathan texted Austin. Come home. We talk. For real. Austin arrived at dawn, knocking soft as contrition. They sat on the couch, knees touching, the space between vast as the bay. I'm done, Austin vowed, sliding a folder across, printouts from Gamblers Anonymous, a counselor's card, a repayment plan sketched in shaky pen. 6 months clean already, before the slip. I can beat this. Jonathan traced the pages, feeling the indentations of resolve. No more secrets. Ever. Never. Austin's hand found his. Steady now. I love you too much to lose you. Rebuilding was tentative. Date nights enforced. Finances segregated, Jonathan's art money into a locked account. Austin's freelance transparent via shared apps. Austin attended meetings daily. His absences explained with check-ins. A photo of the circle's coffee urn. A signed note, thinking of you. Christmas came. The city strung in lights Jonathan felt in twinkles on snow-dusted lashes. They hosted a small party. Lila, a few gallery friends, eggnog spiked, Carol's bass lines thumping. Austin gifted Jonathan a custom easel, adjustable heights for his standing sculptures, engraved, to my anchor. In return, Jonathan unveiled mended fractures, a companion to vows, wire thorns woven into a heart, glass shards fused whole. For us, he said, guiding Austin's hands over it. Broken, but beautiful. Tears dampened Austin's voice. God, John. I don't deserve you. Holidays faded, winter yielding to spring's tentative bloom. Jonathan's career surged, a feature in SF Chronicle, relayed by Lila's gleeful transcription. Hale's Tactile Worlds Redefine Accessibility, offers poured in. Austin negotiating with renewed vigor, every deposit verified side by side. Intimacy returned, deeper now, laced with vulnerability. Austin confessed fears in the dark. Abandonment issues from a nomadic childhood, chasing stability in code and now, in Jonathan. You're my compile, he joked, but the truth hummed beneath. Yet, in the quiet crevices, doubt lingered, a vibration unfelt, waiting to quake. It struck on a balmy April evening, Jonathan returning from a workshop at the Crucible in Oakland. The BART ride home was a symphony of rumbles, depositing him at the 16th Street station amid the scent of street tacos and exhaust. Kane leading, he ascended to their street, the air thick with jasmine from neighboring balconies. The apartment door was ajar odd. Austin was meticulous. Inside, vibrations greeted him. Murmurs, low and urgent, from the bedroom. Jonathan froze, heart a drum. Not alone. He moved silent as shadow, shedding shoes, the floorboards mercifully muffling. The voices resolved. Austin's, strained. Another's, higher, pleading. You can't keep doing this, the stranger said, words vibrating through the wall like accusations. He's going to find out. A pause. Then Austin. He won't. I fixed it, the money's back. Just go. Please. Fabric rustled. Footsteps approached. Jonathan pressed into the hallway shadows, breath held. The door creaked, and a figure brushed past, slender, cologne citrus sharp, not Austin's. The front door clicked shut, and Jonathan exhaled, world reeling. When Austin emerged, whistling again, that damn tune, Jonathan stepped forward. Who was that? Austin's whistle choked. What, John? You're home early. Liar. Jonathan's voice was ice. I felt him. Heard enough. It's not, Austin stammered. But the lie crumbled under Jonathan's glare, unseen, but piercing. Okay. Fuck. It was Kyle. From the meetings, Kyle. The name landed like a gut punch. Jonathan had met him once, a fellow addict, Austin's accountability buddy, shared rides to group. Lean, quick-witted, the kind of guy whose laugh vibrated infectious. What does he want? Jonathan demanded, though dread supplied the answer. Austin deflated, sinking to the couch. At first, it was just talk. Support. But things got blurry. One night, after a bad slip, we hooked up. In his car, outside the chapel. It meant nothing. Nothing. The word echoed hollow. Jonathan's mind flashed to their bed. Austin's touches, had they carried echoes of another? How long? He whispered. Twice. Swear. I ended it. That's why he was here. Pleading. But I told him no. Betrayal's second wave crashed. Colder than the first. Not just money stolen, but fidelity, a currency Jonathan had banked everything on. You fuck him while swearing sobriety to me? Austin's sob was visceral, shaking the cushions. I'm broken, John. But I love you. Only you, love. That word, weaponized. Jonathan stood, numb. Leave. Again. This time, Austin didn't fight. His goodbye was a ghost of a kiss on Jonathan's knuckles, door shutting with finality. Alone, Jonathan curled on the floor, the apartment a tomb of echoes. The city outside partied on, laughter from the bar below, a saxophone's wail from hate, but his world was silent, shattered. Spring mocked Jonathan with its relentless optimism. Cherry blossoms shedding petals like confetti on Valencia Street, the sun's warmth a cruel tease on skin that craved numbness. He threw out Austin's clothes in a ritual purge. The thump of duffels downstairs a cathartic thud. The apartment echoed emptier, scents fading. No sandalwood, no coffee grounds, just the sterile tang of turpentine and takeout containers piling like accusations. Lila became his lifeline, dragging him to brunches at Tartine where the croissant's flakiness crumbled under furious fingers. Dump the bastard, she signed over mimosas, her gestures emphatic. You're Jonathan fucking Hale. The Chronicle called you a visionary. You don't need a thief with wandering hands. But visionaries bleed too. Nights blurred into marathons of insomnia. Jonathan pacing the loft. Hands roaming walls for anchors that weren't there. He'd sculpt until dawn. Ferocious pieces of barbed wire and molten glass, titled Betrayer's Thorn, sold sight unseen to a collector in Marin who sensed the fury in the invoice notes. The group meetings saved him. That basement confessional where stories intertwined like veins. The drag queen, now Sasha, shared war paint tips for covering dark circles. The tech bro confessed his own infidelity spiral. Hitting bottom's a gift, Sasha drawled. Voice a smoky vibration. Forces you to rebuild higher. Rebuild. Jonathan tried. He hired a financial manager, a no-nonsense queer woman named Rosa who audited their accounts with the precision of a surgeon. Your ex siphoned $38K total, she reported over Zoom, her screen reader's monotone unflinching. But we've frozen assets, flagged the accounts. He'll pay restitution or face charges. Charges. The word tempted, a legal guillotine. But Jonathan hesitated. Spite wasn't his palate. Instead, he channeled it into art. A public installation for SF pride. Silent shatters. Mirrors cracked but reflective, inviting passers-by to touch their own fractures. Critics raved, the Bay Guardian dubbing it a tactile manifesto for queer resilience. Fame's glow was bittersweet. Invites flooded, TEDx talks, with interpreters, panels at the GLBT History Museum. Jonathan navigated them with a polished poise, cane swinging like a scepter. But spotlights cast long shadows, and in quiet moments, Austin's absence ached like a phantom limb. He reappeared in fragments, texts from a new number, miss you. In rehab, 90 days. For us, Jonathan blocked it, but the seed burrowed. Rehab, Austin's Hail Mary, checked into a facility in the wine country, surrounded by Napa's orderly vines. Lila forwarded the intake letter, Austin's scrawl pleading, learning to be whole without taking from you. Curiosity, that thief again. 1. Jonathan visited on a sweltering June weekend. The drive up Highway 101 a blur of wind-whipped hair and Rose's reluctant chauffeuring. If he cries, we're out in 5. The center was a low-slung adobe amid lavender fields. Scents assaulting. Eucalyptus sharp. Earth damp. Austin waited in the courtyard. Thinner. His usual swagger leached to humility. Jonathan felt his approach, the hesitant step, the inhale like prayer. John. Austin breathed, voice rough from disuse. You came. They sat on wrought iron benches. Lavender buzzing bees symphony. Austin poured it out. Therapy revelations. Childhood neglect fueling the chases, for wins, for highs, for Jonathan's unwavering light. I cheated because I feared losing you to my mess. Self-sabotage, they call it. Pathetic. Jonathan's fingers clenched. Thorns of old wounds pricking. It destroyed me, Austin. The lies, the touches that weren't mine. Austin's hand hovered, then retreated. I know. And I'll spend life making amends, if you'll let me. A pause. Heavy. But if not, I get it. You deserve better. The air hummed with unspoken pleas. Jonathan stood, cane tapping retreat. Think on that. I am. Driving back. Bay Bridge spanning like a steel promise. Jonathan wrestled the pull. Love wasn't linear. It looped, knotted, sometimes strangled. But humanism demanded grace for others and self. Summer deepened the city's hedonism. Pride's roar a bass quake Jonathan felt blocks away, rainbow crosswalks sticky underfoot. His installation drew crowds. Fingers tracing mirrors with gasps, he sensed in collective indrawn breaths. A young man approached at the unveiling, vibrations tentative. Voice soft, your work. Sees me. I'm deaf. Out to my folks last month. This feels like permission to break and mend. Jonathan's throat tightened. That's the point. We all shatter. Art glues the pieces. That night, alone with a glass of Napa Cab, irony noted, he unblocked Austin's number. 1 coffee. Neutral ground. Next week. The cafe was in the Castro, a hole in the wall with mismatched mugs and the perpetual grind of espresso. Austin arrived early. Jonathan felt the fidget in his tapping foot. They ordered blacks. No sugar. The steam's heat a bridge. Conversation danced cautious. Austin's Progress, sponsor named Marco. Daily journals. Jonathan's triumphs, a Guggenheim Fellowship nod. Laughter crept in, tentative, a shared memory of their first disastrous camping trip in Point Reyes, where Austin's tent collapsed in a gale, leaving them huddled under stars Jonathan saw in Austin's vivid tales. Then, the pivot? "I want back in," Austin said, voice steady. "Not as savior. As partner." "Equals." Jonathan sipped, the coffee bitter. "Equals don't hide. Or betray." Austin nodded, unflinching. "Then test me. Whatever it takes." The test came unbidden. Jonathan's big break. A commission for the SMOMA, a site-specific piece for the new queer wing. Budget $50,000. Rosa handled funds, but Austin volunteered transparency. Joint oversight, weekly audits. Work consumed them, late nights in the studio, Austin hauling steel beams, his grunts a familiar rhythm. Tension simmered, touches accidental at first, a brush of forearms, a steadying hand on hip. One evening, as they welded under fluorescent buzz, sparks flying like fireflies, Jonathan turned. "Why you?" he asked, not signing, voice raw. "After everything." Austin's welder's mask lifted, eyes unseen earnest. "Because you're my echo, John. The one I feel even in silence." The kiss ignited, fierce, forgiving, tongues mapping apologies. They made love on the studio floor, amid metal shavings and clay dust, bodies reclaiming territory. It was messy, human, sweat-slick, urgent, laced with tears. After, tangled in drop cloths, Austin whispered, "I'm all in. No more ghosts." Jonathan believed, or wanted to. Fall arrived with its crisp edges, leaves crunching underfoot in Golden Gate Park. The commission progressed, resonant lies, a chamber of vibrating walls etched with Braille confessions, lies told, truths unearthed. Critics previewed, Hale transforms betrayal into bass notes of empathy. Opening night was electric, the museum's grand hall thrumming with heels and hushed awe. Austin stood sentinel, guiding Jonathan through the throng, his arm a pillar. Lila toasted, "To mended fractures." As guests dispersed, a man approached, vibration sleek, cologne citrus. "Kyle." Jonathan stiffened, Austin's grip tightening. "Congratulations," Kyle said, voice neutral. "Beautiful work." Austin's reply was ice. "Thanks. Now go." Kyle lingered a beat, then vanished into the crowd. Jonathan exhaled. "Handled. Learned from the best," Austin murmured, kissing his temple. But secrets fester. Late October, package arrived, unmarked, heavy. Jonathan's fingers probed. Photos, glossy, edges sharp. With Lila's help, they scanned. Austin and Kyle, entangled in a motel room, timestamps from August. During rehab orientation, Jonathan's world imploded. "You lied." Again, Austin, summoned, blanched, felt in his stumble. "John, that's old before I checked in." "I swear, photos don't lie." Rage boiled, humanistic grace incinerated. "Get out." For good. This time, Austin fought, sobs racking, pleas a torrent. "I was weak then. But I've changed." Change doesn't erase. Jonathan's voice broke. "It rebuilds." "Without you." Evicted, Austin left a void. Jonathan sealed it with work. The Guggenheim grant materializing, a year in residency at Yaddo, upstate solitude. He packed light, Sculptures. Cane. Heart armored. Departure was fog-shrouded. Austen's final text unread. Forgive me. One day. San Francisco receded. The plains hum a farewell. In the Hudson Valley's hush, Jonathan unpacked, fingers tracing new clays, vibrations from autumn winds. Art poured, cycles of ruin and renewal, queer anthems in stone. Months later, a letter arrived, handwritten, Austen's scrawl. I'm sober. Alone. Working construction in Oakland. Your exhibit changed me, saw it last week. Proud. Always. If you ever. No pressure. Love. Jonathan burned it, ashes scattering like petals. But in the embers, grace flickered, not forgiveness, but release. Humanism wasn't absolution. It was carrying scars as badges, loving self first. In Yaddo's woods, Jonathan sculpted his manifesto, unheard ascent, a blind figure climbing wire peaks, deaf to falls below. The world felt again. Tactile, true. Winter in upstate New York was a brutal tutor, blanketing Yaddo in snow that muffled even the boldest vibrations, forcing Jonathan inward. The residency's stone manor, with its creaking radiators and library scents of aged leather, became his cocoon. Days dissolved into feverish creation. Dawn hikes where frost crunched under boots like brittle bones, afternoons wrestling marble in the carriage house studio, evenings journaling confessions into a voice-to-text app that rendered his ramblings into stark prose. Isolation amplified echoes. Austen haunted the margins, not in calls, blocked, or visits, unwelcome, but in the sculpture's sinews, a curve here reminiscent of his jawline, a hollow there echoing his laugh's rumble. Jonathan confronted it head-on in therapy sessions via video. His counselor a soft-spoken dyke from Albany whose signs flowed like river water. Betrayal's a mirror, she tapped one session, screen flickering. Reflects your fears back. What does it say about you, that you choose poorly? Jonathan thought, but aloud, that I'm human. Gullible. No. Resilient. You loved fiercely. That's not failure. Resilience became his mantra, etched into sketchbooks. The Guggenheim funded bold experiments. Kinetic installations with haptic feedback. Wires humming confessions visitors could feel in their palms. I hid because I feared abandonment. One read, Austen's sins anonymized into universality. Peers at Yaddo, a poet from Brooklyn, a composer fleeing LA's glare, gathered for salons, their applause a collective tremor that stitched Jonathan's frayed edges. News from San Francisco trickled via Lila's bulletins. The SMOMA piece installed to acclaim, Resonant Lies, a pilgrimage site for queer youth. They're touching it like scripture, she texted. Attachment a audio clip of sobs amid the hums. Pride swelled, tempered by ache. Austen would have crowed, arms slung proud. Spring thawed the grounds, daffodils pushing defiant through mud. Jonathan's residency culminated in an open house, artists showcasing amid lilac blooms. He unveiled unheard ascent, the blind climber now crowned with thorns that bloomed wire roses, destruction birthing beauty. Collectors circled, but a quiet bitter one, the young woman from years back. Her bid whispered, for the heart it mends. Post-Yaddo, Jonathan returned to the Bay not as refugee, but conqueror. The apartment, sublet in his absence, greeted with dust motes dancing in light he felt as prickle. Rosa had fortified finances, investments diversified, a trust for future sales. You're bulletproof now, she declared over dim sum in Chinatown. chopsticks clacking like castanets. Re-entry was a whirlwind. Interviews with KQED, interpreters signing his quotes with flair, a mural commission for the Castro Mural Project, tactile tiles depicting queer icons, fingers tracing Harvey Milk's resolve. Jonathan thrived in the chaos, body buzzing with purpose. Dates dotted his calendar, casual, exploratory. A barista with ink-sleeved arms and a laugh like thunder. A curator whose palm vibrations spoke poetry. But Austin's ghost lingered, insistent. Lila dropped the bomb over coffee at Phil's. He's out of rehab. Clean 18 months. Working odd jobs. But asking about you. Jonathan's stir stick snapped. Let him. Fate, that meddlesome director, scripted the collision at the GLBT History Museum's annual gala. June's heat wave turning the ballroom into a sauna of sequins and sweat. Jonathan arrived solo, in a tailored vest that hugged his sculptor's frame, Kane a silver extension of Will. Lila buzzed at his elbow, narrating, "Darlings everywhere. That NB in the feathered cape is eyeing you." The vibrations built. Speeches thumping podiums. Jazz band's bass slinking through floorboards. Then, a familiar step, hesitant, circling the periphery. Jonathan's pulse spiked, but he held court, fingers flying in animated ASL with a donor. Inevitability struck during dessert. Austin's voice, gravel soft, at his shoulder. "John, you look incredible." Jonathan turned, the air charging. Austin smelled of clean soap and faint sawdust, construction grit. Thinner still, but steady, eyes felt in focus clear. "Lila," Jonathan said, voice even. "Water." Dismissed. She vanished with a wink. Alone, the chasm yawned. "Congrats on the clean time," Jonathan offered. Neutral. Austin exhaled. "Thanks." Group helped. "And watching your rise from afar." "The Guggenheim? Fuck, John. You're unstoppable." Silence stretched, jazz filling the void. Jonathan tapped his cane, deliberate. "Why approach now?" Austin shifted, suit jacket rustling. "Closure? Or hope?" "I saw Ascent online, the video tour. Those roses? That's us. Thorns to blooms." Jonathan's laugh was sharp. "Romantic revision. We ended in ashes. Maybe. But embers start fires." Austin's hand extended, not touching. "One dance? For old times." The band swung into At Last. Etta James' soul a vibration that tugged. Against better judgment, Jonathan yielded, Austin's palm warm, guiding to the floor. They moved, awkward at first, then fluid, bodies remembering rhythms. Austin's breath ghosted his ear. "I sold my story to a podcast. Anonymized. Proceeds to a queer youth shelter. Amends. A start." The song faded, but they lingered, foreheads nearly touching. "I'm not ready," Jonathan murmured. "But coffee. Sometime." Austin's nod was a bow. "Sometime's enough." Sometime became Tuesdays at the cafe. Neutral ground evolving to tentative terrain. Austin shared raw, sponsor check-ins, relapse scares weathered alone. Jonathan reciprocated, residency revelations, the barista fizzled by mismatched vibes. Laughter returned, cautious, like spring rain. Intimacy crept, a knee brush under tables, a hug lingering at partings. One evening, post-museum panel on disability in art, Austin walked him home, the fog's chill a conspirator. At the door, Jonathan paused. Upstairs? Just talk. Talk devolved to touches, fingers tracing collarbones, breath sinking. They made love deliberate, Austen whispering litanies of sorry and please, Jonathan's body a verdict. Not yet forgiven, but open. Summer deepened their dance. Weekends in Muir Woods, Austen describing redwood cathedrals in haptic poetry. Barks furrow like worry lines, needles hush a blanket. Jonathan sculpted en plein air, Austen modeling nude, pose held with quiet dignity. For Vulnerable Code, Jonathan titled it, Austen's form abstracted into circuits of clay, flawed, functional. Conflict simmered beneath idle. Doubts surfaced in group. Sasha challenging, he's a phoenix or a repeat offender? Jonathan wrestled, journaling, love as risk, human as flawed. The quake hit Labor Day weekend. Jonathan's solo show at the Whitney, a coup, flown to New York amid autumn's crisp bite. Austen tagged along, uninvited but welcomed, handling logistics with quiet efficiency. The opening was a vortex. Champagne flutes clinking, curators' murmurs a swarm. Mid-soiree, Kyle materialized vibrations sleek, now accented with East Coast polish. Jonathan Hale, he drawled, hand extended. Fan. Austen's told me. Everything, the air iced. Jonathan's grip was vice. Everything, Kyle's laugh tinkled false. Water under bridges. I'm in recovery too, group in Brooklyn. Austen and I. Ancient history, but eyes lied. Jonathan felt the undercurrent, Austen's arm tensing beside him. Later, in their Chelsea hotel room, confrontation erupted. He followed us? Jonathan demanded, shedding tie like shackles. Austen paced, carpet muffling fury. Ex's haunt. But it's done. Blocked him months ago. Yet he knows about the show. Coincidence? Paranoia? Or pattern? Jonathan's voice rose. Is this amends? Or encore? Austen halted, face crumpling. God, John. I came clean in therapy about Kyle. The slips. It's public in my 12 steps. Public. The word stung, Jonathan's pain commodified. My hurt. Your redemption arc. No, Austen reached, but Jonathan recoiled. Space, he said, grabbing coat. I need air. Manhattan streets swallowed him, neon buzzing, taxis honking vibrations that jarred. He wandered to the High Line, elevated tracks a vein of solitude, city lights pulsing below like fireflies in frenzy. Hours later, hotel-bound, resolve hardened. Love demanded truth, unvarnished. Austen waited, wrecked, eyes red-rimmed, voice hoarse. Don't leave. I'm not. But we rewrite the rules. Jonathan sat, deliberate. Full disclosure, emails, phones, meetings. No shadows. Austen nodded, fervent. Anything. Everything. Fall back in the Bay was a negotiation. Austen moved to a studio in the Mission, proximity without pressure. Transparency reigned, shared passwords, joint therapy sessions where counselors mediated like referees. Progress was glacial, trust rebuilt in layers, thin as phyllo. Yet romance bloomed stubborn. Picnics in Dolores Park. Austen's fingers spelling sonnets into palms. Gallery crawls where Jonathan's pieces sold to queer philanthropists. Austen toasting with craft IPAs. Sex evolved. Exploratory. Egalitarian. Austen yielding control. Jonathan directing with touches that commanded. Thanksgiving brought Lila's feast. Turkey brined in irony. Yams mashed with candor. To fucked up families, she toasted, glasses clinking. Austin fit, awkward but earnest, carving duties assigned with a wink. Winter solstice neared, holidays looming like loaded canvases. Jonathan planned a gift, a collaborative piece. Echoes mended. Austin's coded etchings fused into Jonathan's bronzes, scars visible. Presentation was intimate. Their old apartment, now Jonathan's solo, fire crackling in the hearth. Austin unwrapped it trembling. Us, he breathed. Flawed code in solid form. Then, his gift, a key, plain iron. Sublet ends. If you want, move back. Or I move in. Your call. Jonathan pocketed it, heart a drum. Soon, but sooner came crisis. New Year's Eve. Austin's sponsor called relapse scare. A bar slip with colleagues. No bet but temptation's edge. He confessed pre-dawn, voice shaking through the phone. Came home. To you. Jonathan met him at the door. Snow-dusted shoulders, eyes wild. No anger, exhaustion. We fight this together. They did. Emergency meeting at dawn. Then bed. Holding through tremors. Vulnerability bonded deeper. Love tempered in fire. Spring 2026 whispered renewal. Jonathan's mural unveiled. Tiles gleaming under Castro sun. Austin stood proud. Hand in hand. Kyle a faded specter. Yet the shocking secret brewed. Invisible. In Austin's silences. A vibration off-key. Waiting to crescendo. The crescendo built insidious. A fault line straining beneath their rebuilt fault. By summer's sultry grip, Jonathan's star ascended. A MacArthur genius nod. The press releases fanfare a quake through Lila's excited relay. You're changing the game, babe. Tactile genius. Funds flowed. A studio expansion in Potrero Hill beckoning. Loftier space for larger dreams. Austin anchored the ascent. His freelance stabilizing into a steady gig at a queer-owned tech co-op in the Excelsior. Coding apps for disability access. Full circle. He'd quip over breakfasts. Vibrations cheerful as he plated huevos rancheros. Their life wove seamless. Mornings tangled in sheets. Austin's fingers tracing braille love notes on backs. Evenings on the roof deck. City sprawl a tactile tapestry of lights and horns. But fissures snaked unseen. Austin's energy flagged. Late nights at the office excused as crunch time. His hugs briefer, cologne edged with unfamiliar spice. Jonathan queried gently. Tired? Austin's replies hummed reassurance. Just the grind. Love you more. Human intuition. Honed by senses sharpened. Prickled. One August dusk. Post-yoga in the Presidio. Austin spotting poses with murmured encouragements. Jonathan's phone chirped. A misdirected email from the co-op. Forwarded by Glitch. Subject. Project Helix. Confidential. He scanned it via app. Words blurring into betrayal script. Austin. Confirm the backdoor code for the next transfer. Helix needs clean entry. $15K to the offshore. No traces. As always. Offshore. Transfers. The old nausea surged. Bile sharp. Jonathan's fingers whitened on the cane. World narrowing to the park's deceptive peace. Gulls crying. Waves lapping the bay like indifferent applause. Confrontation brewed overnight. Jonathan's sleep a vigil. Dawn found Austin in the kitchen. Coffee perking. Whistling that cursed tune. Jonathan entered silent. Email printout, braille embossed by all-nighter, thrust forward. Explain. Austin's whistle died. Mug shattering on tile, porcelain's crash a punctuation. John. Shit. It's not. Helix? Backdoor? Offshore. Each word a whip. You're laundering. Through my spotlight. Austin sank to knees amid shards. Voice fracturing. It started small. The co-ops of front, shady investors, crypto schemes. I coded the app, but they pulled me into the weeds. Fixes for cash. Then. More. Jonathan's laugh was hollow. More. Like my grants? The genius money? A sob. No. I shielded you, diverted to dummies. But Kyle. He's the link. In deep now. Brooklyn syndicate. Threatened exposure if I bailed. Kyle. The specter resurrected. Fangs bared. You chose this. Again. I chose us. Austin lunged. Grasping ankles. Tried to quit, told them no last month. That's the email, me stalling. Stalling. We're scheming. Rage-crested. Humanistic threads snapping. Police. Now. Austin recoiled. John. They'll bury me. The co-op's legit facade. Queer jobs lost. Consequences. Jonathan spat. You taught me that. The call to SFPD was clinical fraud division. Details relayed through a patient interpreter. Detectives arrived swift. Badges vibrating authority. Hauling files and laptops. Austin cooperated. Cuffed but calm. His gaze pleading, believe me. I was ending it. Jonathan turned away. The doors slam a guillotine redux. Aftermath was apocalypse. Headlines splashed, genius artist's husband in money laundering scandal. Lila's damage control a whirlwind of statements. Jonathan Hale unaware. Victim of betrayal. The art world recoiled then rallied. Petitions for his exoneration. Exhibits reframed as survivor art. Alone in the loft. Jonathan unraveled. Sculptures smashed in fury. Canvases slashed sightless. Group became lifeline. Sasha holding him through sobs. Betrayals his, not yours. Investigation dragged. Autumn leaves rotting like hope. Austin's arraignment. Wire fraud. Conspiracy bail denied. Flight risk flagged. Visits were plexiglass partitions. Vibrations muffled through phones. Austin's voice cracked. Cal set me up. Dangled the job. Hooked me back. I was blind. John. Like you warned. Jonathan's retort. Blind to your patterns. Not mine. Yet cracks in armor. Austin's full confession to feds implicated the syndicate, turning state's evidence. For us, he mouthed through glass. Redemption's long game. Winter buried the city in gray. Jonathan's output a torrent of grief. Shattered circuits. Installations of fried motherboards and fractured stone. Exhibited at the Yerba Buena in a raw, uncurated show. Crowds came, touched, wept vibrations of catharsis rippling. Climax crested pretrial. Valentine's shadow. Kyle's testimony leaked. Vindictive. Painting Austin mastermind. Jonathan complicit. Paparazzi swarmed the studio. Flashes felt as heat bursts. Lila barricaded. But despair clawed. End it all. No. Humanism roared. Survival as statement. Jonathan testified. Prepped by prose. Voice steady. He betrayed me thrice, wallet, bed, now this. But I rise. Art doesn't launder. It launders souls. The jury deliberated days. Fog thick as suspense. Verdict. Austin guilty on lesser counts. Probation. Restitution. Community service. Syndicate bosses the true net. Cal. The Snake, drew Max for perjury. Release was Spring's gift. Austin, chastened, reporting to Halfway in the Sunset District. First meet was neutral park bench. Magnolias blooming defiant. I'm nothing without you, Austin whispered. No touch. Jonathan's reply, then be something. Alone. Months stretched probationary. Austin's amends tangible. Volunteering at the shelter his podcast funded. Coding free apps for the disabled. Letters arrived weekly. Unvarnished. Poetic. Your ascent pulls me up, even from mud. Jonathan read. Felt. Wait. Summer solstice. Pride's prelude. He invited. Dinner. My terms. Zuni again. Oysters sharp as truths. Over wood-fired fowl. Boundaries set. Therapy tandem. Finances firewalled. Intimacy earned. No savior, Jonathan stipulated. Partner. Or nothing, Austin's eyes shone. Partner. Reunion was gradual. Shared sunsets on Baker Beach. Waves crashing confessions. Collaborative sketches. Austin's lines feeding Jonathan's forms. Lovemaking returned. Sacred bodies temples, not battlegrounds. Fall brought the humanistic close. Jonathan's magnum opus. Betrayed harmonies, unveiled its MoMA. A symphony of vibrating sculptures. Each pulse a story of queer endurance. Austin attended, clean-shaven, suit crisp, hand offered openly. As crowds touched and trembled, Jonathan pulled him aside, alcove shadows intimate. The secret, he murmured. It was you all along. Capable of dark, but light too. Austin's kiss was benediction. And you, my sight, my sound. They emerged hand in hand, city lights winking approval. Betrayal scars etched permanent, but woven with gold, Kintsugi lives, beautiful in breaks. In San Francisco's eternal fog, love wasn't flawless code. It was open source, editable, enduring. Jonathan Hale, blind and deaf, saw it clearest. Humanity in the mess, romance in the mend.